Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for joining the conversation today. My name is Clarice Kovacs. I lead product marketing and Motor Insight, and I'll be your host for today's session. Before we actually launch into the conversation, I want to welcome our guests, our experts, who are going to be sharing lots of great insights and information with us in today's session. So I start with you, Taylor. If you would just please provide a quick introduction to our listeners today about yourself and also the solution that your team and your company offers to dealerships.
Yeah, thank you. I'm very excited to be here and talking about how we can recapture prospects that we didn't even know we lost. We've got a lot of great stuff to cover. I'm Taylor Beaudry, Senior Client Engagement Manager at Syncro. At Syncro, we are a provider of all digital solutions and AI-powered technology. So really helping dealers meet their customers at a local level. My role specifically is really focused on the dealer group market. So partnering with dealer groups across the US and North America to really dive into their goals, their challenges, and how we can really use our solutions that are available to us in the industry to really meet their business goals. So very excited to be here and can't wait to jump in.
Amazing, Taylor. Thank you very much. I think I jump to Jason next as well on the same team.
Thank you for having me. Jason Jewett, Director of Product here at Syncro. My job is really focused on making sure we bring products to the market and partnerships to the market that allow us to be successful for the dealers, make sure the dealers have success. That comes with it a lot of the insights you're going to hear today and how to improve and how to be better and how to really execute on what we need to do as dealers.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Jason. And Randy, welcome also.
Well, thanks for offering me the opportunity to participate today, Clarice. Look forward to chatting with you, Jason and Taylor, about the subject at hand. I'm the head of accounts here at Car Media 2.0. We are a provider of vehicle merchandising services to car dealers across Canada, the United States. We've got strategic relationships with companies like Trader Corp, Kia, Mercedes-Benz, Volvo, Shift Digital, and SiriusXM. A little background on me: I've been in the business over 20 years. Having held a few serious roles with software companies, financial services companies, digital marketing companies, and now vehicle merchandising with Car Media 2.0. Look forward to sharing some of my insights with you guys today.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Randy. So just for a little bit of context, every time a dealership or you invest in a new tool or a new solution or you change the process at your dealership, there's ultimately always one goal. You're looking for an opportunity to interact with high quality prospects, convert them effectively and efficiently to ensure that you close more opportunities as well. But there are so many things as such can impact the results and the outcome. And really what we wanted to do in this webinar series, just to break the consumer journey down into three chunkable segments, and then look at, in each session, we'll look at areas where we can introduce some enhancements or some improvements to really help with those results and that you're looking for and that you're seeking as well. So if you had the opportunity a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about top funnel. So we're looking at dealerships' opportunity to capture consumers at their research phase and influence them early to ensure that they drive that quality traffic to their website as well. We also looked at who today's and tomorrow's shoppers are, and then spent a bit of time talking about advertising efforts as well, where your dollar should be spent, how do you know that you're getting the most ROI for your money as well. So we really were top funnel, driving higher quality and volume of traffic to your website. So today we're mid funnels, we're talking about engagement. You capture those high quality shoppers, you've driven them to your website. What are those best practices that you should be implementing to ensure that you keep those customers engaged, active, and interacting with whether it's your lead forms or if you have a digital retailing tool on your website as well, and consumers interacting with your digital inventory as well. So I definitely have the experts in the room who's going to be able to walk us through that consumer journey and then help answer some of those questions as well. So I do encourage you, want to make sure it's an interactive session. So I encourage you to pop your questions in the Q&A as well. And then we'll make sure that we leave time to address those questions and also thoughts and comments as well, if you have any of those. So kind of like to launch into the conversation, I thought these stats from Google Think also, it's a few months old now, but I thought this is a great bridge to help our conversation from session 1 to this session as well. These numbers are not new, but they are changing. And when we look at how the consumer journey is evolving, some of these trends have been evident for a while as well. We know that dealership visits are declining. There's less and less visit that consumers will make before they make a decision as well. And where they search, where they want to find the information, that they connect with the right dealerships, and they also show interest in the right inventory as well. So Randy, I wanted to kind of help you kick off this conversation, because you and I have had many phone calls and Zoom conversations exactly about that, the consumer journey and how it's evolving, how it got accelerated, the different trends in the past year as well. So yeah, I would like you to kind of like kick off our focus on this slide.
Well, thank you, Clarice. You know, I find it interesting. I'm a student of the business, and one of the things that has continued to change over the years is the number of dealership visits are going down. And if you look at this Google study on the screen, it's from summer of 2020. And at that time, most consumers were visiting just one dealership. And what that means to me, and what it should mean to you, is that if you're not engaging with your clients online through your website, through your digital advertising, and through your merchandising, they're going somewhere else. So, you know, the old thinking of we have to get them into the dealership to be able to start the journey, that's already started. You're now at the end of the journey. I hate to say it, but you really are. And you know, at that point, if you're not engaging with that consumer and bringing them into your store, or at least bring them into your digital store, you're falling behind. Now, a couple interesting stats that I like on this screen is that almost 30% of car buyers are prepared to buy their next vehicle online. And that's pretty compelling. And I think those numbers are actually even higher than last year, with obviously the COVID effect and what that has meant for consumers visiting dealerships online. Dealers really have had to shift and pivot towards a different model where they pull consumers to their online store as opposed to pushing them to come into their store. So things like, you know, the at-home test drive, digital retailing tools, engaging with the customer through a variety of engagement and re-engagement tools is more important than ever. And I think the other thing that really sticks out to me is that dealers, again, they need to pivot. They need to move away from the old school approach of just trying to get them in the store. I think you really need to, adapt and to engage and draw them in. Again, I refer to it as a pull versus a push strategy.
I agree. And we will be digging into those best practices on dealers' website in our conversation today. But just wondering if Jason or Taylor, any other thoughts on these stats that we have on the screen?
Yeah, I think these are just some very powerful metrics. It is so fun to look at them and how they've transitioned and changed over the past few years. And I think what Randy mentioned is really key. You know, if you think about it, if you have a shopper come into your physical store, it's very unlikely that you're just going to let them walk right out without engaging with somebody or something. So if you really transition that and look at that, how that transitions or looks from your digital showroom, you know, there should be a very close, if not exact, one-to-one translation. You should have the same expectation. You know, you really want to keep that shopper engaged while you have their attention captured.
Yeah, how are you gonna be the one dealership they visit, right? How are you gonna be the one they decide is right? I think Randy's gonna go over some other metrics about the behavior of what they're doing and how many are willing to call you or email you and some of those things. And you're gonna find that people are choosing their dealership without some of those traditional methods. So your only chance to engage them and convince them to be the one dealership to visit is how you market and merchandise yourself and your experience to get them to walk in the front door, so you get that one shot at them. So great stats. They continue to drive in this direction every year. I think we said in 2012 it was a fluke, and then every year it got more and more not a fluke, more dealers doing and more consumers behaving in a certain way, and it's just going to continue to prove out.
Yeah, I think I'll add to that, when we heard the last session, Matthew Groden talked about what drives consumer behavior for someone to engage with a dealership. And it's really two things. It's they found the vehicle they want on your website, number one. And number two, they have a feeling you're going to have a good business relationship. In other words, they trust you and they want to engage with you. Because then they just come in. You know, a lot of them don't actually show up as a lead. A lot of them are just literally walking in your store to find that vehicle they want in particular, and then, you know, complete the buying process.
I agree, Randy, and I think this is a great segment to this piece here. And of course, I'm going to spend a little bit more time on digital retailing, but it kind of ties all the three pieces of information that Taylor, Jason, and Randy, you shared. It's about that consistency. So if you have that brand promise and you're very clear on the experience that the consumer is going to embark on if they connect with you, and a lot of the time remotely. So if you think from a consumer perspective, they may not have had interactions with the dealership before, but if you have that message across all your platforms and all your advertising as well, and it's continued into the physical showroom as well, when the customer comes in, you just keep building on that trust and transparency piece. And I like this. This is a specific group who we work with as well. They have the same messaging across all their advertising efforts on their TV, on their social medias, and all of on their websites as well. It highlights the four pieces of information that the consumer needs to know. One is around convenience, of course, that if they choose this path, this is what they're going to be experiencing. They get the best price up front, so the dealership have a one price policy, and it's targeted to a specific audience as well. And we're not saying that this is for everybody, like it's not one size fits all. It's really what your brand promises, what kind of experience you're looking to offer, and make sure you have that consistency and continuity in all your messaging across every effort that you have on your site. And I think this kind of like, it launches a great, it's a great segment into the homepage section as well. And I want to spend some time in here, Jason and Taylor. I know that you and your team has a lot of data on this to look at what are those key elements that dealerships should be focusing on, starting from the homepage, that's going to help those customers interact with the information and the tools that are available there.
Yeah, it's really important to focus on if you have your site properly built and set up for an experience, and people, I shouldn't say people, but things in the universe like Google can read your site properly. When all that's set up properly, we're seeing new metrics where that first number you see there of 40% of your customers entering through your homepage, that number continues to decline. More and more people are getting right where they want to be to have the experience they want, because they don't want to get intercepted by all your messages that aren't relevant to them or aren't tailored to them. But when they do end up on that homepage, you need to make sure they can get where they want. Everybody who ends up on your site has a goal, and you can quickly and easily find out what that goal is based on previous customer experience. And if you find out what that goal is and you can focus on what your top goals that account for 90+% of your traffic, you can get those 3 to 5 things front and center on your entire website, but definitely on mobile, so that 72% of the customers who come to your site never have to scroll. That's your ultimate goal. I never want to have to move my thumb to find what I'm looking for when I landed on your homepage. I want to get to what my purpose was there, because if you don't get me to something purposeful and you don't get me there fast, the chances are I have a bunch of different options on what I can do. That's why you see so much divergence in brand now. The brand loyalists aren't there anymore. Somebody who sets out to buy brand A ends up in brand B more now than they ever did. And sometimes based on things like the JD Power surveys, that's based on their experience with an individual dealer website. Sales satisfaction, yeah, I was going to buy brand X, but because I had a horrible dealership website experience, I didn't even go find another dealership with that brand. I just switched brands and bought brand Y. It's a very interesting dynamic that the metrics, again, when you look at data over time, it keeps shifting to that way, where an experience and over 500 models available now in North America, it's really easy to go find something else that's pretty close to what you started at if you run into a bad experience. So let's start the experience right for those people entering the homepage.
Right. And then if we go to from mobile view to desktop, Taylor, like what are those key pieces here that dealerships should be focusing on?
Yeah, this is this slide really does a great job of summarizing some of those key builds for an optimized homepage. You know, as Jason mentioned, you really want to reduce the need for a consumer to have to scroll. Really getting everything that it is that they're looking for right up front is going to enhance that experience. And while 40% is a decrease for homepage entry traffic, it's still a good chunk. So you can't neglect the homepage. You need to look at of course, your VSRs, your VDPs, but obviously, homepage is front and center as well. So making sure, as Jason mentioned, placing those 3 to 5 CTAs right at the top, that's where those consumers are most likely to click. But then as you think about how the consumer would continue to shop, if they're not instantly engaged, they might be considering other pieces of inventory. They might just be in a research and consideration phase. So presenting them with real pieces of inventory that, Randy's going to get into here in a little bit. And just continuing to present those options for engagement. So that search bar is going to be key, letting them dictate really what it is they're looking for. And then again, looking at other pieces of inventory that might be recommended based on some previous search behavior. And then always at the bottom, align with those CTAs again. So, if they're still in that research or consideration phase and they haven't clicked into, a VSR or a different page deeper in the site, you're presenting them with those options. And we've seen a lot of success with those really resulting in, being service and parts department specifically. So very complementary to the inventory pieces as well.
And even though this is a desktop view, this is true of mobile too. If I don't instantly interact with the place you want me to go, because that might only be 72% of your customers, anticipate what might drive me deeper through your site. The ability to search inventory by a keyword or by drop-down boxes, showing actual inventory on the homepage, or, with over 500 models available, I might not know that your particular model is the large SUV. Put a representation, bucket them by cars, trucks, and SUVs. Let me see a visual representation of the cars. That might be what leads me deeper into the site. You still have the 10 to 15% looking to schedule service. If you look at JD Power's data, 52% of the people who arrive on a dealer's website for service and parts are looking to schedule service, yet only 11% said they could find it. So making sure that if somebody's scrolling, that you have a way to get to service and parts. And also the part that's not on here, because it always ends up at the bottom of the page, is the hours and map. Think about how many times you've gone to a website on your mobile phone and all you really wanted to do is find out which location this was or how to get somewhere. What do? You go like this until you get to the bottom, because right at the bottom, you're going to find their address and a map. So don't forget that on your dealer website either, because some people are doing that. I promise you, we can see, so many people see the top of the site. Then people scroll past the middle sometimes, and you still have a ton of people that see the very bottom of the site because they were looking for those hours and maps. So it's just really about that experience. You also don't see any pop-ups or flyouts or giant promotions going on here because it distracts the consumer from getting where they want in their site and might actually cause them to leave.
We actually have a question, and I think I may pause for here because it's relevant for that section. So would you prefer the CTAs first on the homepage versus the traditional standard promotional slideshow banner?
We have done the case study to prove out that those call to actions will drive deeper engagement. You'll get more search results to happen. You'll get more vehicle details page views. You'll get more form submissions because you got somebody to what they wanted. Because the chance of your promotional offer, unless you're on a platform that offers a truly tailored experience. So we say the caveat to that is if you can show a banner that's relevant to that customer's previous search history, and that's the only time it shows up, and then it disappears otherwise, then that will get higher engagement than having these CTAs. But they don't. We've treated the website, I'm trying to think of a good way to put this. We've treated the website as a marketing thing, especially the homepage. And really, the way digital's transformed since 2012, you're not needing to do any marketing on the homepage or throughout your site. The marketing's what got them there. Now it's time to merchandise your departments like new vehicles, used vehicles, service and parts, the things that they came there for. If your marketing didn't work, they wouldn't have been there in the first place. You don't need to market to them again to get them to engage with your site. They're already there. They want to engage. Let's get them engaged and get them where they want to be as fast as possible so that they feel delighted by my website experience, which could be completely different from the 5 other websites they might have visited. If you're the one to delight them, you might get that extra consideration.
Yeah, so being conscious of where the consumer is actually at, where they land on the homepage in their journey, and providing that relevant information for them, right? I wanted to show here just a couple of examples of some of our customers who have a slightly different execution here. It kind of continues on some of their brand experience and brand promise as well, and how they utilize their homepage. So here they actually highlighting the experience that they offering to customers. So you can, once again, you can see that consistency. And for example, the first one with this Mercedes-Benz dealership, when you click on build your deal, it actually takes you to a landing page that explains to the customer exactly the journey or the experience that they're going to embark on. So once again, like right away, like if you're remote selling and that customer has not interacted with you in the past, that it provides a clear information on exactly what the dealership is offering. And then it's funny when you mentioned, Jason, that highlighting your opening hours and the map of where you're at, this dealership already thought of that. They actually put that on their landing page. So it's really easy to find. So it just allows the customer, okay, so I can do some of these steps online, but I know I have the option to visit the dealership at the physical showroom as well, if that's where I want to pick up or continue the conversation. And then the second example here, the dealership actually included a video explaining the experience. So I think it's like a 90-second video. So it really doesn't take long for the consumer to watch it. But once again, I think the more information you provide for the customer to help those make those well-informed decisions of who they're going to interact with is ultimately going to help you drive those quality engagement as well, because you're just being transparent about the process, right?
Transparency in process is key. It's been so long since we've been transparent in the process, which is part of the reason people hate buying a car, is because they don't know what they're going to get. And to your point about the 90-second video, if I would have sent every person who registered for this webinar an email and said, I need you to read this one-page document or watch this 60-second video, 80% of them would have watched the video and 20% of them would have done nothing, right? Nobody's going to read the one-page document. So when you can get those short snippets in there, but we aren't transparent, because who wants to say, okay, when you come into my showroom, I'm going to have somebody greet you at the door. They're going to ask you 15 questions you already answered online 9 times. Then we're going to spend an hour going through my product. Like, the reason we've never been transparent is because we never had a good way to describe it and be honest. If you have a good way to describe your processes and be honest, that's what's going to drive the consumer engagement. So I love the transparency piece here, because that's all they want to know. Tell me what's going to happen. And then if it happens, I'm okay with it. I don't care if your process is 3 hours long if I knew it going in. Yeah. I also don't care if your process is 5 minutes long.
Right. And here's another execution. So this is actually, there's a call to action button from the hero banner, but the dealership here actually explaining the process on their banner. And when you click Start Shopping, it launches exactly that. So it launches Browse the largest inventory Toyota in the world. So they have the consumer, it knows exactly when they start on this process, based on their budget, their persona, their needs, they can really easily narrow down on their consideration set and continue their purchase as it's laid out to them. So again, it's just a simple execution, provides all the information that the customer needs, and it puts the customer in control. So they're well educated, and then ultimately that helps them go further in the funnel as well. So from here, let's move over to the SRP, or vehicle search results page as well. So what are those key pieces of information, best practice tips for call to action buttons that your team have come across and have data on that you feel that this is going to bring the results or ultimately help drive additional activity from customers?
Yeah, this is a really good one because it does go into actual words. We tested the use of different words. Like using the word get is probably one of dealers' favorite words. Like get e-price, get a quote, get something. The word get in today's society means instant gratification. So when I hit the get button and a chat window or a form or something else that requires me to interact is popping up, it just distracts me and forces me to close it. So we found that you should have just one call to action on your vehicle search results page, and you should use the word request, because request doesn't make you go into shock when either a form or a chat window or a text window or something else opens up. So that's one of the biggest takeaways here. Also, not impacting the experience in a negative way. Like if you go shop anywhere but a car dealer, I don't need a details button. I know if I click on the picture, it's going to get me to the details. I know what a quick view is. You have to use stuff we've learned from where these people, they buy a car every, depending on what market you're in, between 30 and 40 months is the average trade cycle. They're using dealer sites once every 30 to 40 months. They're using all the other websites in their life every day. The more you can mirror that experience on what they're used to dealing with, the better off you're going to be. Same thing with having just something where I can quickly start typing a search at the top. If you're on desktop, we found horizontal filters are more impactful to consumers than vertical filters. So having your filters horizontal across the top, putting things up there that are relevant to your customers in your market. If you're in Florida, you probably don't want to put heated seats as a quick filter on the top. But if you're in Colorado, where I am, you do want to have that there. So having things that quickly let them, consumers say once they pick their top 2 or 3 options, then they're willing to consider almost anything. So if you have a quick way for them to do that, it's all about speed and efficiency. You also notice there's no banners at all on this page. And that's because everywhere else you're used to doing business, unless it's like Oriental Trading crazy website, but if you're on Gilt or Nordstrom or Macy's or Amazon or wherever else you may do any kind of shopping or research behavior, they don't plaster me with a bunch of banners. What they do is they inject it into the experience where I almost don't notice it. So you should inject your offers in the experience. You can see here, there's a manager special that applies to 3 of these vehicles that are of the model you filtered down to. If I just want to see those 3, I was still able to, I wasn't confused that I landed on inventory. Sometimes you click inventory and there's a video followed by a promotional banner, followed by another video. It takes me 3 thumbs on a mobile device to find out I actually landed on your inventory. I might have bailed by then. Get them right to the inventory. And then by the time they haven't found the vehicle that's right for them in like the 5th spot, you're adding this great promotional item that might drive your desires. Start with the consumer's desires to shop your inventory, but then push the things you want to push them to, just inject it as part of the experience. It's all about the experience.
Yeah. Is there anything that you wanted to add to that, Randy, as well? I know that we're going to be touching more on the solution that you offer on the VDP as well, but I think it's important that we highlight it here also.
Yeah, I think on the screen you're seeing a variety of stock images on the search page, right? And unfortunately, we've learned that consumers just don't click on those. So we recommend dealers invest in vehicle merchandising, even if they do it on their own, to make sure they've got uniquely shot images of those vehicles. Because as I talk about in a future slide, like 7 out of 10 consumers won't click through. And that's a number that's scary to a dealer that's investing a lot of money on a website and on their inventory, not able to attract a consumer to actually click on the VDP, which at the end of the day, that's what the consumer wants to do. That's a scary thing.
Taylor, any additions to SRP best practices at all?
Yeah, I just wanted to do an additional call out with that section where it does layer in that promotional offer. I think that's really key because, you know, looking at still that opportunity to layer the content that's focused on what the consumer is looking for. So as Jason mentioned previously, you know, a website isn't necessarily a huge marketing tool. It's a merchandising tool. Like you've marketed to this point, but continuing to leverage to merchandise along with those promotional offers. You know, if we think of the basic 4 Ps of marketing practice, you know, we've got product, promotion, and price and place. This really does a key job of how we strategically can place those offers, not just to give a consumer's eyes a rest of looking at multiple vehicles, but it's really placing the right type of content where the consumer would expect to see, so it continues to encourage that engagement. So I think that's a really key piece for us to consider as we really look at some SRP optimization.
Thank you. And I actually have an example here, but based on Jason, what you had mentioned, like we could probably from this SRP page, we could remove the view details because, you know, in general, you can click on the image and actually it takes you to VDP page. So we could take it down to just one call to action button. But here, once again, is that consistency. So this dealer does have the banners all across the site as well. But the consumer knows that when they click on calculate my payments, it's going to launch them into the experience. And then as we move from like SRP to VDP. And I think one of the gaps that I often see as well on dealership websites, especially on the vehicle detail pages, is the numbers of call to action buttons that we see. And it's conflicting call to action buttons as well, right? So you might have a chat banner with several pop-ups. And I've counted on one website, it's like 10 different call to action buttons. Like really, like I knew most of them what they meant, not all of them, but if I'm just thinking from a consumer perspective, if they land on a vehicle detail page, they want the information surface that's important to them, description, well-written description as well. But to ensure that you get the right level of interaction, you have to have a clear and simple path for consumers, right? And is there like a best practice tips, Jason, that you can share on the number of call to action buttons that should be on a vehicle detail page as well?
Yeah, on top of digital retailing, it should be 3. So we're going to talk about digital retailing when we go more into vehicle details, but there should be 3. And they shouldn't, to your point, they shouldn't be conflicting. Think about how you search in the rest of your life as well. That's the reason that the vehicle search results page should be 1, because everywhere else I search for anything, whether it's research or a product, Amazon, Target, Walmart, Gilt.com, it's always picture, title, price, because this is where I'm filtering to get a good idea of what I want. When I want more details, I'm willing to go get more details. But if you have millions of details, I can't tell that there's actually other products to look at because I just get scrolling fatigue. Right. But when you're there, those call to actions also shouldn't mirror each other. My favorite is when I find a website that has 10 call to actions, and the first 3 are get an e-price, get a quote, get today's pricing. All 3 of those are for the same, like, why do you need 3 things to ask me for a price? And what's the difference between today's price and e-price and a quote? Like, and they all open, if I click them all, they all open a form that looks exactly the same.
The same form.
Yeah. A different title. Like it's really painful as a customer to try and interact with a dealer. We're going to see from numbers that they don't want to interact anyway, right? There's 20% emailed before buying a car. It's 70% are walking through your front door. Part of the reason is because we make it so hard to contact us because we make it confusing. I don't know which price I want. You gave me 4 different options on how to request a price. I don't know if I want today's or the e-price or which one's better.
Right, I just want the best price. Yeah, and actually here on with this dealership, you have the opportunity to actually, if you've got a good digital retailing solution, you have the opportunity from the VDP to launch into different sections of that digital retailing tool, right? Like here, we know that value my trade is super important because it helps define the budget that the consumer is looking to spend on the new vehicle. Check availability or contact dealer is one of those standard things that if I just have a quick question, give me the ability to contact the dealership. And then here is the schedule a test drive and also the calculate my payment. It all launches that same experience. So versus like having different vendors, forms here, there, and everywhere on the site, at least if I'm a consumer, I'm clicking on this and I'm in the same stack, I'm in that same environment. So it's just that simplified process once again as well.
And they're using all our top words. The 3 top words, if you're only going to have 3 buttons outside of digital retailing for performance-wise to actually generate clicks on the button and completions of whatever pops up from that button, whether it's a chat or a text or a form, is check, value, and schedule. It didn't matter what you put in after that. Check, value, and schedule proved out to drive great results on the vehicle details page, and they're using all of them.
So as we talk about the vehicle detail page, we know that consumers are interacting with our online inventory. We want to make sure we surface all the information to help them make those well-informed decisions. Good description writing is key, of course, but there's another big piece I feel like that sometimes dealership miss out on. And I think, Randy, like this is your expertise, and this is something that I think it's really important that we highlight in today's session, that what can dealerships do to ensure that consumers are interacting with those digital inventories even more than they do so today?
Yeah, well, for sure, engagement is critical with the online inventory as quickly as you can. You want that consumer to be able to land on a VDP and find that particular vehicle they're interested in. And as I mentioned earlier, with 70% of consumers not clicking through from an SRP to a VDP, you've automatically lost 70% of your prospects. That's crazy. We have to recognize that doesn't work anymore. 1999 was a long time ago, right? The other thing is when you look at the numbers of engagement, if you have a quality photo, a quality series of photos on your website, that the consumer is 3.5%, 3 times more engaged with that particular vehicle. So we want them to fall in love with the car, right? That's really what it's all about. We often say in our business, it's about making the car the star. And so less distraction. You don't want other cars in the background. You don't want the neighboring dealership in the background. You don't want the McDonald's in the background. And that's why it's so important to use merchandising tools that do illustrate that car in the best way possible. You know, we at Car Media believe in what we call the 3 C's of vehicle merchandising. Number 1 is consistency. We recommend dealers shoot their vehicles with a standardized photo set so that every vehicle on their VLP is consistent. And what does that make the consumer feel? They feel that they're dealing with a dealer that believes in quality, they take good care, they care of what the consumer is interested in. Compliance. One of the things that we found in the last couple of years that's really changed is the OEMs are much more involved with brand compliance at a dealership level. So for example, in the image that you're seeing below, the Audi dealership, you know, that's what the OEMs are looking for. And some are going so far as to say that, you know, every vehicle must be shot uniquely, right? Even for new. Some are going so far as to say this is the photo set we expect our dealers to use and embrace. And that's an important thing for dealers to figure out and to make sure that you're doing the right thing by the brand that you represent. And then finally, coordination. I mean, one of the biggest challenges is if you've got, you know, 500 units in stock and 200 of them don't have vehicle images, well, guess what? You've taken all of those vehicles off the market effectively. And that's really, you know, the hard fact that merchandising today is not an option. It's really a necessary part of the business.
I agree.
Sorry.
Yeah, so I just wanted to talk about this year because I think it's really highlights the difference between one execution versus the other.
Yeah, I think, you know, when you look at this slide, it really illustrates the evolution of new vehicle merchandising. For many years, dealers said it was too expensive. They had so many units in stock. Those vehicles arrive daily. They've got tape on them. They've got shipping coverage on them. Like, they had all sorts of reasons why they felt they couldn't merchandise new. Unfortunately, that's just not going to work for the consumer. So, you know, you've got the placeholder of the image coming soon. You've got the stock photo. Neither of those convert, as we know, based on the stats we shared earlier. In the 90s, it would seem to be enough to be able to do what we call drive-bys, which is, you know, a vehicle that's got the first 3-4 shots of the exterior of the car, yet it's got shipping tape on it. Yet you can see all the background noise with all the other cars in the background. So fast forward to, you know, where we are today, consumers expect real photos. They want the vehicle dealer branded, so they know that's the car that they want at the store that they want to shop at. And they want a comprehensive view because they're going to do 90% of their research online anyway. So it really doesn't matter for the consumer whether or not the dealership wants them to come to the store or not. They're only going to come to the store if they find that particular vehicle that they're interested in.
Randy, we had a question coming. I'm not sure if you have this information. If not, we can dig into it. But is there data around increased photo engagement or click-through to VDP based on the photo order? So we have an interior features, for example, here we can see it on the 8th photo versus the 2nd photo. Is there any information that you were able to share on that at all? Of what angle or how the inventory should be photographed or showcased as number 1 and number 2 photo in the carousel order that will help with those activities?
Yeah, I think the data that we have points to the hero image being the most important shot of the front quarter panel of the driver's side of the car. As people who buy cars don't sit in the passenger seat typically. They want to see what the car is going to be like to drive for them. We sequence our photos in a way in which dealers want. For example, we may shoot a car in a certain sequence to make it easier for our photographers or to, you know, dealers using our self-serve tool. But we can sequence them in any way they want. If they want to, you know, start with the hero engine and then go right inside to follow, that can all be done. But there's also, you know, photo fatigue, which I think is important to note too, because if you get too many pictures of a car, you know, consumers just going to get tired. They're just not going to sequence through the, you know, 40 or 50 photos of the car.
Right. And I like this. Oops, sorry.
Turning those pictures into videos sometimes helps so that they automatically play and they don't get click fatigue. But the other piece is there was a study 2 years ago that said the steering wheel photo as the first photo, and they had a bunch of data that backed up, instead of the right quarter panel, that would increase engagement, but it was a false positive, because all that really was people clicking through to see the front quarter panel. Yep. So people like to trick the system by putting a steering wheel or an interior feature as their first photo on the search results page where all the results are. And because it forces a click into a VDP, that's a bad experience. I can inflate any metric you want. I can put a giant form that blocks your entire website from being used until somebody gives you their contact information. I guarantee that will boost your leads, but it's going to tank your sales, because the people who actually want to do business with you aren't going to deal with that. Same thing with putting an interior photo as your hero image or your spotlight image. It might get you more clicks, but it's just because customers are frustrated they can't see that right quarter panel.
Right. It's like if I'm shopping for a closet, I want to see the inside when that's the first photo. I would click through to the next one to see what it looks like from the outside. And I was going to share the same thought as well. And I think it's a valid point as well. Yeah, they're going to click through to see the outside, but that's ultimately what you're interested in, right? Randy, this before and after, I think it's also super powerful as well, because especially if you live in areas where we do, where you have heavy snow throughout the winter, it's going to be difficult for dealerships to photograph their vehicles and ensure that they well represented.
Yeah, the images on screen I think depict that well. The top left, that Ram 1500 in black, you think it's black, but it looks like it's white because there's so much snow on it. This is an example of a dealer attempting to shoot their own inventory, but not recognizing that you can't just shoot it where it stands. You need to make sure the car looks brand new. This car obviously doesn't look brand new. Whereas if you flip to the image on the right, you'll see that that's a Ram 1500, the same vehicle, but it's shot in the best way possible. Lighting's considered, angles are considered, and certainly replacing backgrounds to make the car the star. I think that's what works very well. And it's actually, this image that I'm showing you right now is part of our new car library, which is a subscription product that allows dealers to just subscribe to it and then basically just have a turnkey solution. So we want to get to a point where dealers don't really have to merchandise new and can focus more on their pre-owned vehicles. So the second one down on the screen illustrates a situation where we've shot the car, but this is where we shot it. This is where our photographer shot the car. It's in the back 40 of the store, or the dealership, excuse me. And then on the right, you'll see how we've edited it. So we've color and contrast corrected that vehicle. You've used the OEM approved background, which is, in this case, is a Chevy Trailblazer, and we're using obviously the Chevy building. They may sell other franchises, but this is particular to a Chevy. And then the other thing we do as well, and I think this is growing in importance to the OEMs, is using brand compliant assets. So you'll see the Chevy logo in the bottom left corner, and the fact that this is a certified pre-owned vehicle. It really makes the vehicle customized to what the consumer is looking for.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you for that, Randy. I think it's important to share these kind of best practices as well to help those engagements. So going back to the whole VDP page layout, Taylor, if you could really just walk us through those best practice steps for to ensure that VDP page is optimized for activity and conversion ultimately.
Yeah, absolutely. So at this point, we are obviously providing much more information. So homepage, really getting those 3 to 5 CTAs to drive them in. As Jason took us through the VSR, we are limiting the information, just really showing the big vehicle, the one CTA, because shoppers know they can just click right into it. So now that they've engaged this much, this is where the shopper is really looking for more detailed information. As Randy mentioned, this isn't going to be any different, but on the VDP, those real images, that's going to be key, making them big, bold, and having a few of them to click through, but making sure that the car is the star. I love that. Then also, as we've talked about already too, so you can see the top converting CTA. So as Jason mentioned, when we were looking at the VDP, 4 maximum, and one of those should be digital retailing, so that calculate. And then the rest is check, schedule, value. Those are really the top converting CTAs that consumers are most likely to engage with. So really focus on driving that lead. An additional opportunity as well, making sure there's that inline form. So shoppers might be willing to just, as they're looking at this information, they're looking at the specs, they're looking at maybe a cash, finance, or lease payment, just giving them a quick and easy way to enter their information. So at this point, we are providing a few more options. So before you make some major adjustments, I think data is a very key piece to look at. Like, as we talked about in the beginning, really presenting these options that your shoppers are telling you, through their behavior and through that data, you're able to learn exactly what it is that they're expecting and what they want, where they want it. So with those CTAs in the inline form, you're giving those options and you can start A/B testing and really customizing and tailoring that experience to the shoppers. And then finally, of course, the similar vehicles. Just because we're at the VDP level doesn't necessarily mean that this is the vehicle that the consumer is choosing. There could be similar vehicles, and it offers you just an opportunity to really merchandise some of those like vehicles. Because if the case that this isn't the vehicle, this isn't the exact vehicle, whether it's a certain spec, whether it's the payment options, or another reason that a shopper is looking to start searching for another vehicle, keep them engaged with your site. If you don't provide them with that option, they're either going to go back to the VSR or they might just leave completely and start a new search, in which you're having a hard time getting that customer back. So absolutely always include similar vehicles at the bottom.
Yeah, you don't want to. We do horrible at this in the auto space. We want to put a whole bunch of other stuff there. So like we put right under all the vehicle details, we put some banners and some videos and some warranty information and some like really detailed, long drawn out specs that somebody who might want to see them will still find. But if you go to any other website that has all this same type of information on their product details page, before they get into all that, they always show you something similar in case this one isn't perfect. Like if based on the brief description and the photos, this isn't the perfect vehicle for me, I want to see other stuff that's like it. If I need more details, I know to scroll past the stuff that's more like it, just based on all the websites I use in my everyday life. We are horrible at sometimes even putting these on there, and we're really horrible at burying them all the way to the bottom under all the other stuff nobody wants to scroll through.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that, team. I'd like to open it up for questions if anyone has any. Well, we'll just go over the takeaway notes as well if we haven't answered those questions throughout the session. But I think that was a great walkthrough, really understanding the consumer journey when they land on your homepage. How can you provide that clear and simple, simplified journey for your consumers that they interact with your inventory and they convert to actual prospects? So we talked about identifying those key sections, making sure that you place them above the fold on the homepage so consumers don't need to scroll, ensuring that we have real inventory with real photos because consumers are more likely to interact with those as well, streamlining that SRP or vehicle search results page, ensuring that we provide all the information we need on the VDP, and then ensuring that those call to action buttons, when we talk about it, less is actually more, to help drive higher quality conversions, ensure that you have the clear path based on the consumer's intent, that they know exactly what they're clicking on, the experience that they're going to go through. And I love the bonus section from Randy, that consistency, compliance, and coordination. I think that's a great takeaway that we can keep in mind when we're looking at merchandising our inventory, the layout of our pages as well, to drive those activity from customers. So it looks like there is no additional questions today. So I want to thank our panelists for participating in the session and sharing those insights as well. If anyone has any questions, they can reach out to me. I can pass those questions on because I know that Jason and Taylor and Randy, you have so much more information that you can probably share with our listeners today. And for our listeners, before we wrap up, when I wrap up this session, there's a quick 2-question survey. I would like to get your feedback on how you found the information that was shared here today. And then if you can join us for our next session in a couple of weeks' time as well. So Taylor, Jason, and Randy. All right, there's one more question. Apologies before we wrap up. Of course, if everyone's okay, we'll be able to email this deck to one of our listeners here. Yep, sure, of course.
Yep.
Great.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so Taylor, Jason, and Randy, I just want to say thank you very much for taking some time out to hop on this call with us. I really enjoyed the conversation, and I hope our listeners as well were able to take some good takeaways from the session today.
Thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate it. It was a good conversation.
Appreciate the opportunity to participate. Thank you.
Thank you.